Welcome back to When Gen X Ruled the Multiplex, where I look at the films that shaped the MTV generation. In the 80s, MTV was often used as a shorthand to describe anything that had a flashy visual style and a hit soundtrack. NBC famously bought Miami Vice off of an irresistible two-word pitch, MTV Cops. Similarly, today's film could be summed up in two words: MTV Vampires. The Lost Boys, which came out in 1987, was directed by Joel Schumacher, who'd had a big hit in 1985 with St. Elmo's Fire. Richard Donner was originally set to direct The Lost Boys, but he opted to work on Lethal Weapon instead. The script for The Lost Boys was written by Janice Fisher and James Jeremias and Jeffrey Boehm. The original script for The Lost Boys was geared towards a much younger audience and was a contemporary retelling of Peter Pan. When Schumacher got on board, he brought along Boehm to age up the characters and make it darker and sexier. The only Peter Pan influence that remained from the original script was the title. The Lost Boys, of course, were the children who lived in Neverland. Aging up the characters turned out to be a brilliant move because The Lost Boys instantly became a teen classic. We open in the fictional California beach town of Santa Carla. The camera pans across the ocean at night and approaches an amusement park on a neon-lit boardwalk while Gerard McMahon's Cry Little Sister plays. Cry Little Sister is a gloriously bombastic goth anthem that includes both low growling male vocals and an angelic children's choir. I fully believe that a big key to the success of The Lost Boys lies in this perfect tone-setting opening shot. You know you're in for a big, loud, over-the-top, great-looking film. A smoldering quartet of teen vampires dressed as rock stars stalk around a carousel. Technically, we don't know yet that they're vampires, but what else could they be? The vampires are led by David, played by Kiefer Sutherland in his first starring role. The son of actor Donald Sutherland, Kiefer quickly became famous for this role and for the Young Guns franchise, then went on later to star in the hit Fox series 24. David's entourage includes Dwayne, played by Billy Wirth, Paul, played by Brooke McCarter, who died in 2015 of a genetic liver disorder, and Marco, played by Alex Winter. Wirth and McCarter are best known for Lost Boys, but Winter went on to carve an indelible niche in pop culture fame for himself in 1989 by playing Bill to Keanu Reeves' Ted in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. A fight breaks out on the carousel when David flirts with some dude's girlfriend, and a security guard kicks the vampires off the boardwalk. Later on, as the security guard is walking to his car at the end of his shift, he's attacked and dragged off by an unseen foe. The Emerson family arrives in Santa Carla, which, as we learned from some billboard graffiti, is the murder capital of the world. Recent divorcee Lucy Emerson, played by two-time Academy Award winner Diane Wiest, is moving from Phoenix with her two teen sons, Michael, played by Jason Patric, and Sam, played by Corey Haim. Also along for the ride is their very good dog, Nanook. Jason Patric, who had made his big screen debut in Solar Babies the previous year, is the son of actor-playwright Jason Miller and the half-brother of popular 80s child actor Joshua Miller. Corey Haim became a child star with sensitive performances in Silver Bullet, Firstborn, and the teen drama Lucas. The Lost Boys would catapult him to fame, but after a short and troubled life, he died in 2010. Over a cover of The Doors' People Are Strange, as performed by Echo and the Bunnymen, we see a montage of the strange going-ons in Santa Carla. In particular, we notice an awful lot of missing persons posters. The Emersons are moving in with Lucy's father, a curmudgeon lead taxidermist played by Barnard Hughes, who lives in a log cabin filled with dead animals. Sam and Michael hit the boardwalk at night and attend an open-air concert at which singer-songwriter instrumentalist Tim Capello performs I Still Believe while shirtless and oiled down and wielding a saxophone. This performance by Capello quickly became iconic. If you raise the topic of The Lost Boys in casual conversation, sooner or later someone is going to mention the shirtless and oiled down saxophone player. At the concert, Michael spots a beautiful young woman named Star, played by Jami Gertz. Jason Patric recommended Gertz for the role because they'd starred together the previous year in the aforementioned Solar Babies, which is one of those 80s teen films that manages to be both terribly embarrassing and sort of awesome. Star and Michael are instantly smitten with each other, which makes sense because they're both extremely beautiful and, I say this with affection, extremely vacant. The Lost Boys is not the kind of film that hinges upon detailed characterization of the romantic leads, and it's jam-packed with larger-than-life supporting characters, so this isn't necessarily a problem, but I dare you to watch the film and come up with a single character trait for either Star or Michael apart from super-duper pretty. Lucy gets a job at a video store because the good-natured owner Max, played by Diane Wiest's Purple Rose of Cairo co-star Edward Herrmann, instantly develops a crush on her. Sam, meanwhile, visits a comic book store where he meets the Frog Brothers, Edgar and Allen, played played, respectively, by Corey Feldman and Jamison Newlander. Newlander is mostly known for this role, while Feldman was already famous for roles in films like The Goonies and Stand By Me, in which Kiefer Sutherland had a small yet notable role as a bully. This is the first of 7 films in which Corey Feldman and Corey Haim, known collectively in the late 80s as the Coreys, would star together. They also appeared in the A&E reality series The Two Coreys. The Frog Brothers tell a skeptical Sam that Santa Carla is a hotbed of vampires. They give him a vampire comic book, which they claim is a survival manual. The Frog Brothers, who dress in fatigues and sweatbands, are weird, self-important, Rambo-style survivalists, and it almost works. They exist both to keep the plot moving and to provide comic relief. It's worth pointing out that The Lost Boys, for being a pretty dark and gory film, is also very funny. Feldman and Newlander will deliver their lines in a very intense, focused deadpan, and neither of them will crack anything resembling a smile for the duration of the film, and it's the right approach. The Frog Brothers end up being pretty memorable characters. There's a scene between Sam and Lucy at home that I'm mentioning only because I want to make sure you take note of Sam's fabulous 1987 bedroom decor, which includes a wall clock shaped like a gigantic swatch, and a big poster of Rob Lowe dressed in a tank top fondling his tummy. Back on the boardwalk, Michael finally meets Star, and they flirt for a while Good Times by Australian musicians INXS and Jimmy Barnes plays. Apparently, INXS consented to let Schumacher use their music for this film only if he'd agreed to direct their Devil Inside video, which seems like a pretty good deal for both parties. David and the rest of his gang arrive on motorcycles, and we meet the youngest vampire of them all, a small boy named Laddie, played by Chance Michael Corbett. David, who might or might not be romantically involved with Star, challenges Michael to a motorcycle race while Lou Graham's Lost in the Shadows plays. Graham is the original lead singer of Foreigner. His best-known solo hit is 1987's Midnight Blue. Like Cry Little Sister, Lost in the Shadows is another big, bombastic, mood-setting song of the type that Lost Boys deploys strategically and well. It's never really clear whether David is interested in or involved with Star, but this race is loosely set up as though David and Michael are competing for her affections. This is a nice dress rehearsal for some tabloid-friendly shenanigans of 1991, in which Kiefer Sutherland's wedding to Julia Roberts was called off at the last minute, and she immediately began dating Jason Patric. David and the gang take Michael to their cool underground lair, which is located in the crumbling remains of a nightclub that was buried in the San Francisco earthquake of 1906. David plays a series of supernatural mind games on Michael, tricking him into thinking he's eating grubs instead of rice and worms instead of noodles. Annoyed by all the tricks, Michael takes a big swig of wine out of a fancy bottle presented to him by David. He brushes off Star when she tries to warn him that it's blood. It is, in fact, blood, and while Cry Little Sister strikes up again, Michael begins to turn into a vampire. Cry Little Sister will strike up at various moments of high drama throughout the film, and it's great every time. Cry Little Sister is the anthem of any teenager with goth pretensions who grew up in the second half of the 80s. A couple of years back, an early trailer for the DC Universe series Titans, based on the DC comic Teen Titans, was scored to Marilyn Manson's cover of Cry Little Sister, and just based on that, I knew Titans was something I absolutely had to see. Manson's version also appears on the soundtrack for Marvel's The New Mutants, proving that Cry Little Sister is eternally associated with sexy, moody teens with supernatural abilities. Back at home, Michael starts sleeping during the day and wearing dark glasses and becoming even more surly and non-communicative than ever. Sam takes a sudsy bubble bath while rocking out, as one does, to Ain't Got No Home, the 1956 hit by Clarence Frogman Henry. Michael bursts into the bathroom with the intention of feeding on his little brother. Nanook protects Sam by attacking Michael, and Sam notices that Michael's reflection in the mirror is starting to disappear, which, per the comic book given to him by the Frog Brothers, is a sure mark of a vampire. I admire how unpretentious the vampire mythology of the Lost Boys is. There are no ancient scrolls or legends passed down through generations. Everything Sam and Michael need to know about this particular take on vampire lore can be found in Sam's comic book. Sam calls the Frog Brothers for advice, and they recommend driving a stake through Michael's heart. Sam is reluctant to do that. While on a date with Max, Lucy calls home to check on the boys, and finds Sam in a panic because Michael, who has developed the ability to fly, is floating outside his window trying to climb into his bedroom. Michael manages to convince Sam he means him no harm. Michael returns to the lair. Star confirms that David turned him into a vampire, and they have sex, accompanied by the now familiar strains of, "Yep, Cry Little Sister." Lucy takes Sam with her to deliver a bottle of wine to Max as an apology for ruining their date. As she approaches Max's front door, she's attacked by his dog, Thorn. According to Sam's comic book, this means Thorn is one of the Hounds of Hell, and he's protecting Max, who must be the head vampire. Sam meets with the Frog Brothers to discuss strategy. Since Michael hasn't fed off of anyone yet, he's not a full vampire, and if they can kill the head vampire, i.e. Max, Michael will turn human again. Lucy invites Max over for dinner. Sam and the Frog Brothers ambush Max with a series of tests to see if he's a vampire. vampire. They lace his food with raw garlic, they dump holy water in his lap, and they stick a mirror in his face to see if he has a reflection. All these shenanigans prove pretty conclusively that Max is not a vampire, and Lucy is furious with Sam for trying to ruin her love life. While all this is going on, David, Marco, Paul, and Dwayne take Michael to an outdoor kegger where a bunch of dudes cavort around a bonfire to the Run DMC cover of Aerosmith's Walk This Way. While Michael hangs out in a tree and observes in horror, David and the gang reveal their true vampire selves and brutally slaughter the dudes. Star shows up at the Emerson house later on and urges Michael to kill the head vampire. Neither Star nor Laddie have fed on a human yet, so killing the head vampire will save them as well as Michael. Star doesn't know the identity of the head vampire, so Sam, Michael, and the Frog Brothers decide to slaughter David's entire gang to be on the safe side. In broad daylight, Sam, Michael, and the Frogs sneak into the lair while the vampires sleep. Edgar drives a stake into Marco and kills him, and it gets extremely bloody extremely quickly. The other vampires wake up and attack. Michael rescues Star and Laddie, and they all make it out of the lair and into the safety of direct sunlight, covered with Marco's blood and viscera, but unharmed. Figuring that David and the surviving vampires will attack at nightfall, Michael, Sam, and the Frogs prepare for an assault by stockpiling holy water from a church while a baptism is in progress, smashing up plenty of garlic, and barricading all entryways to the house. While Lucy is out on another date with Max, David, Dwayne, and Paul raid the house. Paul attacks the Frog Brothers, but Nanook proves once again he's a very good boy by knocking him into a bathtub filled with holy water and garlic. The film solidifies its R rating with a splendidly over-the-top gore extravaganza in which Paul dissolves into a bloody and oozing skeleton, while all the plumbing in the house erupts into geysers of blood. Sam impales an attacking Dwayne on a wooden stake, which sends him flying into a stereo, which blasts In Excess's Good Times while exploding in a shower of electric sparks. Michael and David battle one-on-one, flying around the living room and grappling with each other. Michael impales David on some antlers and kills him. With all the vampires dead, Michael, Star, and Laddie find themselves unchanged, which means the head vampire is still alive. Lucy and Max arrive at home, and Max reveals himself as the head vampire. The Frog Brothers' detection tactics hadn't worked on him earlier because Michael had invited him into the home. Max is in love with Lucy and plans to turn her and her sons into vampires so they can all live together as a happy vampire family. Before Max can bite Lucy's neck, Grandpa, who has spent the film lurking in corners and looking skeptical while delivering dry one-liners, drives his Jeep right through the wall and into the living room. He impales Max on a sharpened fence stake, killing him and restoring Michael, Star, and Laddie to their original human selves. As Michael, Sam, and Lucy stare at him in shock, Grandpa mutters that the one thing he could never stand about living in Santa Carla was all the damn vampires. I mean, it's big, it's loud, it's messy, it's dumb, but man, The Lost Boys is a richly satisfying film. It's not the best vampire film to come out in the 80s. That clearly goes to Tony Scott's The Hunger, which starred David Bowie and Catherine Deneuve. But The Lost Boys is far and away the vampire film that's had the most enduring effect on Gen X. It's not the first film to feature sexy young vampires or to feature vampires in a contemporary setting, but it's the first film to combine vampires with rock music and of-the-moment teen fashions and hot young actors, and to make it all as big and flashy as possible. Joel Schumacher is known for sexy, high-concept films. In addition to The Lost Boys, his resume includes St. Elmo's Fire, Flatliners, 2004's big screen version of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera, and, of course, a pair of poorly received Batman films. Schumacher is the man who infamously gave us nipples on the Batsuit, and a quarter of a century later, he's still apologizing for it. I hold relatively few hotly controversial opinions on film, but here's my hot take. I am totally cool with nipples on the Batsuit. If you can't make Batman overtly sexual, what's even the point of making a Batman film? The Lost Boys was a big deal when it came out in the summer of 1987. I was 13, and my then 15-year-old sister and I really wanted to see it, but it was rated R, so we needed an adult to take us, and our parents had no objection to us seeing it, but they really didn't want to see it themselves, so they refused to take us. So we bought tickets for the Steve Martin, Daryl Hannah romantic comedy Roxanne and tried to sneak into the adjoining theater where The Lost Boys was showing, and the manager caught us and kicked us out, and we ended up glumly sitting through Roxanne. I saw it the following weekend with a friend and her grandmother, who was a very good sport for taking us, because honestly, no one who was born before, say, 1970 should have any earthly use for The Lost Boys. You can see the sticky fingerprints of The Lost Boys all over the teen-geared vampire entertainment that came after it. Twilight, The Vampire Diaries, Vampire Academy, even Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's not that these projects aren't all bringing their own individual take on vampires to the table, But the Lost Boys established the template for how to make vampires tremendously appealing to teens. The Lost Boys spawned 2 direct-to-video sequels, 2008's Lost Boys: The Tribe, which starred Kiefer Sutherland's half-brother Angus and featured the return of Corey Feldman's Edgar Frog and fleetingly Corey Haim, Sam Emerson, and 2010's Lost Boys: The Thirst, which featured both Feldman and Jameson Newlander as the Frog Brothers. I have seen neither. I gave strong consideration to watching both for the purposes of this review, and then I ultimately decided life is both short and precious. I have warm, fuzzy, nostalgic feelings towards the Lost Boys, and I didn't feel a burning need to damage that. Next time, I am going to head off across the 8th dimension with Buckaroo Banzai and the Hong Kong Cavaliers as they battle the Red Lectroids from Planet 10. Some of you just felt a giddy surge of joy at that sentence, and the rest of you probably feel confused and a bit weary. I hope you'll join me for some interdimensional chaos, and until then, please have a great week, and thank you for joining me today.